Okay, so if you remember, I said best thing to do is to make sure you have a nice sharp pencil. So I'm going to start with that 4H pencil first. And when you are holding a pencil, you want to make sure that you are holding it properly. So if I hold a pencil like this, right, and it's kind of upright, and I draw a line, it comes out pretty dark. But if I hold the pencil back farther and make a mark, it's very, very light. And you can try this with different pencils, right, to see that it is a big difference between how you hold it close to the end and kind of upright, or far towards the end and it comes and kind of low. It becomes very light, right? So that's one thing. Another thing that you want to do, and I'm going to actually get started on here, is I'm going to start light and then work dark, is on how fast you move the pencil, but how slowly you also move it. So I want to use the tip of the pencil so that it doesn't look like a rubbing, right? We don't want to be using the side of it because that doesn't look very good. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it kind of far back and kind of angle it up. And then I'm going to go as light as I possibly can. So I'm going to keep the marks going very fast up and down, but I want to move it to the right very slowly. And that should make a nice, smooth value. If I move too fast, right, it's going to look scribbly. And we're not doing hatching, right? We're not doing lines. So we want it to look nice and smooth. So really light values, sometimes I give it just like a layer. The next one, we're gonna let it get a little bit darker. And so here, I might slow down how fast I move it. And you can see that it's getting a little bit darker because I'm holding it a little bit more, like a little bit farther from the end. And then I'm just going over it a few more times. So you want there to be a significant difference between the first one and the second one. Another thing you could always do, if it needs to be smoothed out or just another layer, is you can always go another direction. So I could always shade it going horizontally across, right? And I find that this is a little bit trickier. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll actually switch the paper so that I can go up and down, because I'm a lot smoother going up and down than I am going left to right. Okay, so let's go ahead and keep going. Each time we want it to get a little bit darker, and you can see my hand move down a little bit on the pencil. This just kind of naturally happens for me because of a lot of practice. And so, you know, you start to get muscle memory and you stop thinking about these things sometimes. But you want to make it nice and close together. I can see that I got a little scratchy because I was moving too fast, and I can fix it by just kind of slowing myself down and making it look nice and smooth. One of the things you probably notice is I'm not smudging this with my finger. I want to use purely technique of short, close, overlapping marks to get it to be darker and smooth. And smudging kind of gives you only like one gray, and it looks like hazy gray, and it doesn't really look very dimensional if you do it on an artwork where you want things to look 3D. So it's not that smudging doesn't have its place, but I just feel like for beginning artists, it's probably better just to learn proper pencil control. Okay, so that's not too much of a difference between these two values. Maybe I want to go another direction. So maybe this time I'll go diagonal so that it gets a little bit darker. Okay, so just go across and have it get darker and darker and darker. You know, you could even do a few of these because we know we want this to be darker. I can even go across here all the way to the end. Now you might say, oh, I can do it like this way, but you have to be careful. This is becoming a really long mark. So if you are not careful, it's going to look really scratchy. So you've got to Really control how fast you're moving your pencil up and down. My art teacher in high school showed me to do circular motions. So you can see if that works for you too. I just find that that's a little bit trickier to make it look smooth. To me, it always kind of looks hazy and cloudy instead of 3D. Or like uneven, I should say. Okay, so this last one's going to be your darkest one. And you're going to find that this pencil just will not go black because H pencils are not black, right? Even the B pencils really aren't black. They're just a dark, dark gray because they're made out of graphite. So can you kind of use the tip of the pencil here, but just try really hard not to damage the paper. I can kind of see that that's happening here. Whoop. Can't see them all. Okay, so you want to range from light all the way to dark. Now, looking at the screen, to me, this looks a little bit dark over here. So that's where you can actually use the kneaded eraser. If you need to take off some of it, you can push it down and it will lift off and take some of the pencil off. So a kneaded eraser is made for lightening things rather than erasing things clean away. Like it will, like if I use it like a normal eraser, it will pretty much take things off. However, if I use like a normal eraser on something that's got lots of graphite, sometimes it just smudges. So this is really good for just picking up a little bit of value if in case you went like a little bit too dark. And a lot of times what I can then do is just kind of go back in it and make it like a little bit more even, a little bit more smooth. Normally you have to do a little bit of work if you use that eraser because it's not going to just like, oh, save the day, right? You have to know that it just lightens it a little bit, but it doesn't make it a whole lot better. So if we look real closely at this, you can see that it doesn't get very dark. It's still a little scratchy in places. So I personally never shade with H pencil, but some people really love it. Sometimes it's good for people who like to do like the light skulls and have a hard time getting really light values. So what I'm going to have you guys do is repeat this process with each of your pencils. I'm going to do it, and you don't have to watch the whole video, but you can kind of fast forward as I work to see the process, but I'm not going to really talk about it other than just maybe a couple of reminders about holding your pencil, right? So holding your pencil really far back when you're going lightly, and then just knowing that you want them to each look different as you go across. Switch to my 4B. So you can see you can get really light values still with this soft pencil. Okay, so that's probably where you're ending, but I'm gonna do my HB, or excuse me, my extra black as well. It's very similar to a 6B. Sometimes it looks like an 8B too, depending on what the brand is. I should probably show. The lead on this is just a lot bigger, so there's more pencil. It tends to kind of go a little bit farther. Okay, so you want to have a progression from dark to light. And if you're like not happy and you're like, it doesn't look like some of these look too similar, just keep going back over and trying to even them out. Like I might use my kneaded eraser on this last one to kind of get a little bit more variation. So I want this one to be a little bit darker, and this one a little bit darker, this one a little bit darker, and that one be the darkest. I still need to clean up a little bit over there, but I think that gives you an idea.